For the first time ever, we're bringing on two guests at once. Today's guests are change makers, both individually and together, and are working to transform the health of Detroiters for generations to come. They both understand on a personal level what it means to live in communities deprived of access to healthy food and having nutritional literacy kept out of neighborhoods. Dazmonique Carr and Raphael Wright are joining us today to talk about the movement they are building to empower the city. Dominique and I met Dazmonique when she was creating just the first chapter of the work she's doing today with her business, Deeply Rooted Produce.
She is now bringing the food to the people, as well as the information they need to nourish themselves and their families. Raphael Wright is a social entrepreneur as well, and the author of 2 Amazon best-selling books. He is the founder of Urban Plug, the creator of Neighborhood Grocery, which is the first Black-owned grocery store in the city of Detroit. His goal is to bring health to neighborhoods who have historically been left behind by big box grocery stores. And he and Dazmonique are working hard to make this a solution that can change as many lives as possible together. Today, we have amazing guests, as you guys have just heard from listening to their amazing bios, but that definitely does not do them justice. So before we really dive in, I wanted to share that I actually met Dazmonique a few years ago through a Wayne State incubator program. Des, do you remember that? I can't believe that was just like a few years ago.
Yeah, it seemed, well, when you look at the dates, it seems like it was so long ago, 2019, 2018, and things like that, because I did optimize twice. But yeah, it was definitely, it seemed like it was a long time ago, but time never waits for anybody.
I met Raphael a few, months ago, maybe even 1 or 2 months ago. I actually learned about him through the Social Entrepreneurship Committee, and he's going to be one of our speakers. I was just fascinated by his story, and I'm like, I got to connect with him and see if we can get him on a podcast. So, how did how did this partnership come about?
So I think it came about pretty organically, as far as like we knew each other for a few years, communicated on our intentions of working together, but we just didn't know how it fit just yet. Had a few meetings while I was still on Wayne State's campus, but we just didn't know what action to take. And then as soon as Raphael got some land and figured that, what Deeply Rooted Produce aligned with what he wanted to do, then we set out a time to kind of work on some details and started from there.
I love that. Yeah, especially because it was just organic. I mean, a lot of times I think things are just about alignment. So, you can always have these ideas or want to partner, but sometimes it's just not the right time. So, Raphael, y'all both born and raised in Detroit, right?
I believe so. I'm born and raised in Detroit, East Sider. I've been here my entire life. So the perspective of a lifelong Detroiter is a little different than those that, have moved in later. I like to call us, and I found this word or term, I think it was from a Mike Duggan speech, of legacy Detroiter. I've been here since 1988. I was born in that year. So I've seen the city at its absolute worst, as well as seeing it, ascend, allegedly, or however we want to see it. So yeah, I've been here a long time.
No, I love that you mentioned that too. It's something about seeing the growth, whether that's in a person or the city, along a period of time, and then being a part of the growth is huge. And that's why I knew it was so important. Isha and I both knew it was so important just to have y'all on here today. Before we dive in a little bit deeper, Dazmonique, so can you kind of tell us a bit? Are you from Detroit, or you're a native Detroiter?
I wasn't raised in Detroit, but I grew up here. My roots are in Detroit. I've visited Detroit probably several times when I was younger, because I do have family members that are here, over 300 cousins that are here, but I didn't. I'm originally from New Jersey and was transplanted through track scholarship at Wayne State.
I still remember first meeting Daz during Optimize Wayne and like the first workshop that she ever came to, and it was amazing to see like the progression of her as like a leader and a social impact entrepreneur and just throughout the program. And then yes, like you did do it twice, but I feel like that first time you went from not wanting to speak and we were at the same intro table to taking charge of like your project and like growing it into this awesome thing that you both are working together on today. So it was just amazing to see, and that's why I'm even more excited to have both of you on today, because we get to learn about like the next evolution and how you all are using all of these different tools and connecting community and connecting with this sort of this issue that's been rooted in communities across really honestly even the country, and you're starting in Detroit, and it's really amazing to see what you guys are already doing and what you're going to do. And so moving into communities, I guess food is obviously such a powerful tool, and it unites people across communities and across backgrounds, and everyone has their own personal connection to food. And I'm sure that both of you have missions in your own minds about the future of food deserts, obviously, you're working towards solving right now, and food insecurity in Detroit. And we know these problems impact millions of people. So I would love for you guys to start off by sharing your own personal connection to the mission that you're trying to solve and how you sort of came across it and were like, we have to do something about this.
Growing up here in Detroit, um, you have like several extremes when you approach food. You have, what you eat at home with your parents, what you cook, what your parents cook, aunts, uncles, granny, whatever, and then you have what's outside of the home, food away from home, and the social fabric shifts so quickly when you're trying to move up the economic ladder. Meals become less of a home cooked thing and more of just what's available right then and there. You work like my mother did, work all day, but still came home to cook. You are blessed. But I know a lot of my friends and even relatives, their parents work very long, ungodly hours. So once you get off, even if you have money, you tend to just go to McDonald's. You tend to, just go to the Coney Island. You tend to just go to the fringe sources that's all around, and the word like food desert in itself has never been applied properly when it comes to Detroit. We have never been a food desert. Even when I was growing up, it was never a desert. It was always a swamp because we got plenty of food all over the place, but the food that's available, it will never sustain a community. So it's always been desert, 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 which I think has created like a bad cloud for efforts like, Daz and myself. We're not able to capitalize effectively. We're not able to receive the resources and other things that we need to really sustain and grow our models because it's a desert. Why would I want to invest in something that's dry and deserted? But, growing up, you just don't think about those things being real. You don't think about how McDonald's will affect you when you become an adult. You don't think about, I ate chips and pop, drank pop every morning, going to school. You don't think about what that does. In the media, in the news growing up, we always talk about crack babies and, what that does to a person in their development, but we never talk about sugar. And that's probably worse. So I became a victim of food insecurity. I was diagnosed with diabetes when I was 19. And that kind of started my path into one, food security or food sovereignty, wanting to build a grocery store that will be anchored in a community that will not only provide healthy food, but other things, but, for the most part, agriculture as well. But then overall, my biggest vision has just been to reimagine and reshape the neighborhoods that I'm from, knowing that I grew up in neighborhoods that didn't have grocery stores. So I've lived in food deserted communities, but the city overall is not a desert. But I've lived in neighborhoods that don't have a grocery store. That has to be there if you want to rebuild the community. So you can't start nowhere else until you look at the food that's in that community. If you can't feed the people, then there's nothing else you can do. So just reimagining what community looks like, that's really where I've knocked on the door, opened the door to all of the work that's associated with food security, food sovereignty, and health. So I know that was a little wordy, and I want to get I want to get Dash's take because I never heard from her mouth. But that's pretty much my start into the field and where I'm at today. Is I want to build communities. It starts with food. It doesn't end there because you have to incorporate so many other elements. You know what I'm saying? Politics, education, media, several things. But with all that being said, it has to start with food. That's the foundation to everything.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, and I think, like Raphael said, most people create a business or organization based off of something that they struggled with or experienced throughout their life. So with me, it was food access in school. All of this scholarship money is coming in, or grants and loans and things like that, but I didn't know how to manage it. So I feel like my problem was more so financial literacy in addition to food access or food sovereignty. More so because I had access to grocery stores, but the cost of that food and the quality of that food wasn't that great. It would go bad a couple of days after I would get it. And then I was going through, or I transitioned out of a relationship, and the person I was in the relationship with spent or paid for majority of the groceries. So now I'm head of household or whatever and paying for my own groceries and didn't even know, how much they cost, or valued what my quality, I didn't understand what quality I value at the time for myself. So yeah, as a student athlete, I transitioned to learning how to grow food because I volunteered with the Detroit Biodiversity Network. They wanted to grow native plants that grew in Detroit and Michigan, but I learned that food was something that I could get through a $2 pack of seeds or a 99-cent pack of seeds. So I would be planting and growing these things, squash and zucchinis. And then they're like, well, what are you going to do with all of this? Because you can't stay here. So I started working with nonprofits, specifically Auntie Nay's house, and grew a whole bunch of food there. She allowed me to she facilitated me consuming a whole bunch of high quality food in addition to distributing a lot of food that went to neighborhoods that they would have at their Saturday distribution. So I didn't know what I was doing at the time, but I knew that the food that I was eating was more healthier than what I was getting at the grocery store. So, and I knew there was people who didn't really get the same quality right there to their doorstep. Then I started delivering food off my bike. I had a wagon and a crate tied to my bike, riding my bike from Eastern Market to the farm, because I started to get involved with Keep Growing Detroit and their Growing in Detroit program. So it was very little steps that leads up to Deeply Rooted Produce today, and the vehicles that we are getting and have, that literally was a step in the direction towards the rest of my life and the rest of the story of Deeply Rooted Produce.
That is amazing. I really appreciate the fact that you both shared stories of how you were personally affected or people you knew were personally affected by the problem that you're trying to solve, and also just talking about all of the tools that we need to combine to solve the problem, and that it starts with food. That was really important. And Raphael, I love that you talked about just the importance of not generalizing, one place as a food desert, and actually looking at each individual community and seeing what access that individual community has to food in itself, and then how generalizing can even impact the support that you guys are getting as social impact entrepreneurs in these communities. So that was a really important point. And it also reminds me to make sure I'm paying attention as I phrase my questions as well.
Oh, yeah. No, I definitely do. I actually have a very embarrassing story. So, when Raphael was talking about like waking up and eating hot Cheetos or chips, let me tell you. So I was one of them kids, like in elementary school. I went to elementary school right around like Wayne State area. Um, and we used to get up like I used to have hot Cheetos for breakfast. Like so we would be in like the courtyard waiting for the bell to ring. And my parents could definitely, I'm sure I could have had some cereal, something, but it was a thing. So we would go to school and eat hot Cheetos for breakfast. And then y'all know what the Kool-Aid, like where you're not okay, listeners. So you know how you normally make Kool-Aid and you got your water, your sugar, a spoon, and a container. You're gonna start it at home, right? And then you pour it out in a cup like a normal um, person. So what we would do is get a Ziploc bag. I would sneak in my kitchen at night, and I would get a Ziploc bag, get at least like a cup of sugar in there, and then I would pour the Kool-Aid in there, and I would sneak because I didn't want my mom to know what I was doing. So the next day we would go to school, and in like the courtyard, it was a thing. So you would take your Ziploc bag full of your sugar and your Kool-Aid, and then you would literally like cut out a part of a small little part of the Ziploc bag, and then you would go around with your friends, and you just put it in their hands, and then you would lick your hand. I know this is disgusting, right? I'm embarrassed to say this. I've never even said this out loud. So yeah, you would like just lick your hand, and then you go in school with your little nasty, dirty hand, and it'd be the color of whatever Kool-Aid that you ate that day. On top of that, your hands are red because you've been eating hot Cheetos for breakfast. So you just little nasty, dirty kid all around. Okay, so when y'all said this, I feel like my parents would be like, you weren't raised like that. But yeah, so that's what I think about, right? So it wasn't until I got to high school where I met one of my really, really good friends, and her family, like everything was organic. Like deodorant was organic, toothpaste, her chips. Like you thought you were gonna have like some hot Cheetos. No, you had some like, I don't know, organic type of chips, whatever. And I was like, this is so fascinating. You mean your deodorant is organic? This is crazy. So it wasn't until then I said, wow, I'm going to practice. I can't go to Coney Island right after practice. So I just started like, it just reprogrammed my mind. So I really feel like many times until we're directly affected by a problem, like you've been diagnosed with something, or, somebody just introduced you to something different, it changes your perspective. So I just really appreciate y'all sharing that. I mean, I like haven't thought about them hot Cheeto days in so long. But yeah, so I just appreciate y'all sharing that. And I love hearing like why people started things because it's so purposeful. And, I'm a huge believer in like when the problem that you're trying to solve is not about you and it's like a people problem, that's when it's special and you should really pursue it. But when we think about communities, we think about nonprofits, right? So many people think in order to help the community, you have to be a nonprofit. So I wanted to talk to y'all about like, can you share more about like how you're structured? What was that process in figuring out how you should be structured? Just to provide some insight to someone else who think that they should have to go the nonprofit route.
My very, 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 very first dollar that I've ever made as a self-employed business person was selling Kool-Aid packs. I went to Fulton Middle School, which is now Southeastern. So where Southeastern High School is, there was a middle school next to it called Fulton. That's where I went to middle school for 6th and 7th grade. Back when I was going to school, and it's all social programming or just how society is at the time, it wasn't cool to carry a book bag. It really wasn't cool to be smart. You basically that's what it was. If you got good grades, you was a nerd or whatever the case may be, you couldn't carry a book bag. You got talked about all this stuff. So I was the hybrid because I was smart, but I was also a cool kid. I've been taking martial arts since I was like 5. So I did not get bothered. I didn't get bullied. People didn't mess with me. And I was able to get, Jordans and video games, stuff like that. So I was always on the cool side, but I always carried a book bag as well. 'Cause my parents didn't play that. I had to carry a book bag. During this particular school year, and this is 7th grade, we were all doing that same Kool-Aid concoction. We would fill up the bag full of sugar, add the Kool-Aid in it, mix it up, and then we would bite the bag and just eat Kool-Aid from the bag. Just imagine what that's doing to 7th graders at 8 o'clock in the morning. By 11 o'clock, they turned up. So the faculty, the administration, I don't know if it was a DPS school-wide thing, but for our school specifically, we were sent home with letters like, these kids cannot bring this Kool-Aid to school. If we catch them with it, they go on the detention or they get suspended. Well, I done watched one too many drug movies. I had my book bag. Nobody else had one. So I went to the neighborhood grocery store, got a bunch of sugar, got a big thing of sugar, probably about $3. Got a bunch of Kool-Aid. They were 25 cents at the time. And I was in the kitchen cooking up. I had about 20-some bags of Kool-Aid, and they were in my book bag. So I got into school. They didn't check, you know what I mean? And I set up shop when I sold Kool-Aid packs for like a good little week and a half. And then the fad ended so that I couldn't sell it no more. But like, we have to think about what we did to ourselves. And I think, like, looking at one of my favorite shows right now, Snowfall, the main character is mirroring Freeway Ricky Ross, who is the godfather of crack cocaine, pretty much introducing a specific style of how to cook freebase to the United States, popularizing it for the most part. And he's told stories about how he did not realize what he was doing to the community. He was just chasing money, no different than me when I was in 7th grade. I'm not realizing that I'm giving kids pure sugar every day. You know what I'm saying? And you don't know what effect that's doing to your body. You just looking at the dollar, and like the educational element have been stripped away from us somehow. Like, we're not taught. Like, I have a 4-year-old, and she gets in the car and talks about candy ain't good for you. Apples are good for you. Like, that was never taught when I was in school. We never had that. Well, at least to my knowledge, it was never something that we were taught. But having that now at younger ages is beautiful, and then you reinforce it at home is even greater. But I was selling that Kool-Aid every day until the fad ended and we wasn't on it no more. But that was just something that we all did as kids. You know what I'm saying? The consumption rate of sugar, artificial sweeteners, and artificial products in general was just at a rate that's just ungodly, and then it does a huge detriment to the body. But to get to the question, because I don't want to get too far, but to get to the question, my business, Neighborhood Grocery specifically, is an LLC. So it is a for-profit enterprise. My umbrella company, Urban Plug, is a L3C, which is a low-profit enterprise. And that kind of feathers out the model that I have in every business that's in that umbrella, is that I can make money, and you can be a capitalist and make money. Capitalism isn't, in essence, a bad thing if you are redistributing that wealth effectively. I think from my studies in undergrad and just in my independent studies at home, capitalism could possibly be the greatest form of economic system in smaller populations. When the population grows to large amounts, that redistribution becomes a problem, and you're not able to really effectively continue that mission. But like in cases like, with Deeply Rooted Garden, Deeply Rooted Produce, Neighborhood Grocery, et cetera, being specific to who you're targeting. If I want the whole city, then I probably would fall into that inefficient capitalistic model. And I'm speaking for myself. But in the neighborhood specifically, Jefferson Chalmers, where the store is being built, capitalism would be beautiful, because that's a real baked-in community of, between 10 to 13,000 people. A redistribution of wealth would be more capable. So I like to pin myself conscious capitalist. You know, I love, who don't love making money, especially living in America, and you can. It's what you do with that money that makes the world of difference. So not being a nonprofit, it could be scary when you're doing people work or labors of love. Or you could just flip the coin and say, hey, do I really need all of this stuff? You know, do I need 10 cars? Right? Do I need the biggest house in the country? Do I need the biggest boat? Do I need these things? That helps feather how you approach business. It helps you feather how you approach hiring equitably, partnering with other folks. You know, when it's all about you, there's no partnership or collaboration. There's no fair pay. There's no equal, equitable anything. It's all coming back to me. But when you look at things more consciously, we're basically nonprofits without the title, because our money is redistributed in a way that a traditional capitalist or a traditional for-profit wouldn't approach. So, you know, we can make a bunch of money, but make sure that all of our people are paid properly, make sure that our vendors are paid equitably, make sure that we are reinvested in the land in a way that will help instead of doing a hurt to the planet. Yeah. Those types of things, triple bottom line economics, et cetera, we can be effective and not be a nonprofit. So that is my take, and I don't want to take too much more because I had that weird story. So
we dabbled with a lot of structure because I love the community. I love doing things for my community, but I knew early on that I didn't want to be exhausted. I didn't want to be doing everything by myself, although I had board members. So I started a Michigan nonprofit, but the people who I involved, they didn't really have a visceral connection to what I wanted to be, what was my baby or whatever it was. They knew that it would be successful, but I didn't feel as though they felt confident enough to execute. And so dabbled with the nonprofit, dabbled with the L3C model as well, met with someone who was in the city who was deemed as a connoisseur or just an expert in the L3C area, and he basically said, like, you're still going to be a LLC, but you're just going to be branding, you know, your people are going to know now, like, hey, we consider the community, and we, you know, we're structured as this. And at the end of the day, I decided to be an LLC because it's the same thing. We still have a social mission, and we're still able to communicate our mission and through our actions. So the community dinners that we host, engagements with the community as far as marketing goes on social media, the education aspect, we can transition that now to providing those engagement points on social media. And the reason why LLC is still beneficial because we can still get grants and stuff that we would have otherwise gotten as a nonprofit. There are organizations who are non-traditional funders who support businesses, similar to an optimized weighing program or a social enterprise. There's marketing programs like Taste the Local Difference that give out funds. Some give out funds and it has to be a specific, you have to use it for a specific thing like marketing. But if it aligns with what you're already doing, then why not? So we have grants that are aligned with increasing access to produce for SNAP and EBT customers. We already do that. So why not get money to do that as well? And then being an LLC put us in a better position to partner with other nonprofits. We can be fiscally sponsored by a nonprofit, still apply for larger grants, and then we're not killing birds out here with stones, but accomplish two things at the same time, while still being fiscally and having integrity in the community when it comes to our mission. So I think those are really important. Are you going to be doing these things alone too? Because yes, it was your baby, you thought of the idea, but is there something, do you see yourself in the people that you're working with? And I think that's very important to consider. If you don't see yourself in the person or people that you're working with, it may or may not be beneficial because they're not going to value and have as much passion when it comes to that project or the execution of that project. That was really important to me.
Daz, I love that you mentioned the thing that you said about team and just making sure that you see yourself in your team. I think in our last episode or a few episodes ago, we were talking about how you need to make sure that your team, you pick them so that they're able to carry you to the top and help you do that and carry out your mission. And so you want to obviously see yourselves in them, and you want to make sure that they align with your mission, and you're being really conscious about every single person that you bring on, and not just bring on anybody when they show interest. So it's really important that you mentioned that, so I appreciate it. And Raphael mentioned something about, I mean, he was talking about like triple bottom line ventures and making sure that we're thinking about the greater impact that our efforts and our capital is having on the environment and on other people, and it really matters how we spend our money. And so however you choose to structure it, it just depends how you choose to make the impact. And I think also in another episode, our guest Rishi mentioned just having a balance of heart and dollars with whatever you do, and just making sure that you're being mindful all of the time when you're making decisions that are going to impact your users, your members, your customers, whoever you're building for. And so with that, I want to go into how obviously the climate is changing, and with the lack of reliable public transportation in some areas, and how obviously, for example, the Q line was built and a lot of people were excited, but it doesn't even reach neighborhoods. It's like on one street. So things like that, and just other transportation issues, it has been really difficult and is becoming even more difficult if you live in a neighborhood that doesn't have a grocery store and you don't have a car to get to a grocery store. So obviously, I think we were talking about access before, and we can't always assume that everyone has equal access to healthy produce for these reasons. Um, and we mentioned that when we met Daz, she was working on creating a mobile grocery solution. But what are some methods that you all believe, after having worked on this problem for years now, will meet Detroiters where they are to create access to good, healthy food?
We were like, we want to serve everybody. And we were going out to Troy, we were going out to Ferndale, serving Detroit, farmers markets, being here, being there, doing both delivery and farmers markets everywhere in Metro Detroit. And so now the hyper focus of being on the east side, it really tunes into a specific population, makes us, or it allows us to be more aware of what this immediate community needs, because every community needs something different and they may or may not have an appreciation for local produce. There are a lot of Metro Detroiters and people in a more affluent area of Detroit who value local produce, will come to the farm and know the different varieties. But when it comes to our inner city communities and urban community, people of color, it's not even that they don't value the food, because most of us grew up on this type of food, and I mean the farm grown food. But now it's like, well, I don't really know how to use it, because I remember my grandmother making fried green tomatoes or doing this and that, but she never really taught me. So I need you to, teach me. So I think the literacy aspect, and what Raphael has been advising me on as far as like engaging in social media, that educational point of contact with community members is how we can both engage the young audiences, but also sending postcards to those who value a more in-person and a more visceral connection. So meeting people where they are is, for us, literally being at your doorstep, because I don't want there to be any excuses to why, any excuses or challenges to why someone can't access local produce, specifically produce grown from our farm. And so in addition to the produce grown from our farm, we make other people's farm grown produce more accessible as well, working with over 5 different farms right now for deeply rooted produce. And then we're aligned with the Black Farmer Land Fund to align different farmers, Black specific farmers and people of color who grow, no, actually, let me rephrase, Black Black Farmer Land Fund is specific for Black farmers, and they wanted to make sure that the land equity, land access, and ownership of the produce and the commodities that are grown on those lands are of people of African descent. And so what Deeply Rooted Produce just does is make sure that that food, anybody who wants to distribute that food, can get that to their doorstep as well. So we partner with Eastern Market and different programs, fresh prescription programs, and we want to be in your face with the access aspect.
When we talk about meeting people where they are, the customers change overall. So the customer that wants information or education on how to prepare a particular meal at the house is present, but then you have this new customer who they want the baby but not the labor pain, so they won't prepare food, and that's been a growing sexy customer that has been emerging over the past decade or so, and you see grocery stores adapt to that demand, so you have more prepared food than you've ever seen in any place. You see them in the grocery stores more than ever. You see frozen meals and you see all these different alternatives. And, people want frozen, people want prepared, but they don't want, our artificial food, fake food, or chemicals and whatnot. So that's where the local edge comes in at, because we can do a lot of that stuff. You're impacting the local economy, but it's not necessarily a detriment to your health. So having that convenience is there. And then looking at just the two models of Deeply Rooted being mobile, neighborhood grocery being, stationary and still, you need both. We live in the motor city, but 30% of our Detroit residents don't have a car. And then speaking to our public transportation and how ineffective and inefficient that it is, you need both. You need a standalone brick and mortar location where people can come to, that's drivable if need be, that's walkable if need be, that's deliverable if need be. But then you need that mobility to go places where people may just be a little bit outside of that radius for it to make sense to come to neighborhood grocery. Now you have Deeply Rooted as an alternative that not only has locally grown food, locally prepared food, they have a way to get it to you at your doorstep in like a farm to door manner. And then having culture as well, the education has been, or culture as well, has not been present in the food presentation. So I grew up in the city. I didn't grow up going to farmers markets, and we didn't have that as a thing for us. You know what I'm saying? Going to Eastern Market growing up when I was a kid, man, that was hell. I hated going. It was just I didn't understand. You know what I'm saying? So when my mother and my grandmother would be going there, I didn't understand the therapeutic experience it was to see locally grown food and people that look like them or people that they are familiar with providing food for them to feed themselves. It wasn't until I became an adult and seeing how fractured community can be when you don't have that piece of connection and culture in your community, that it started to become a priority to me. So reconnecting that culture. And then we got to be clear, everything that Daz and I are doing collectively and individually, we will never be able to stack up against any big box corporation like Walmart, Amazon with Whole Foods, Kroger, Meijer, et cetera. We'll never be able to compete. But the one thing they don't have is culture. They don't have community. They don't have all those things. So we don't have to compete at that point. All we doing is just changing our people, helping our people out. And that can become something that spreads with everybody else in these different communities and pockets of communities. So that's where you meet people where they are, is give them what, they need outside of just a good pricing point or, good food. They need education, they need entertainment, they need culture, and they also just need somebody that's present in whatever medium they need them to be present in. If you need a brick and mortar location, we got that for you. We need a mobile alternative, we got that for you. You need something that's raw and fresh, we got that for you. You need something that's prepared, we got that too. So that's how you meet people where they are outside of the corporate traditional model, you know what I mean? And we've been, working on that because times are changing. Things are changing every day. Prices are changing. Distribution is changing. Everything is changing. One thing that tends to stay the same is, we all are part of the same culture. We all need to eat. So finding a way to marry the two and keep them married, we always in a fight. We always have an advantage with that.
I wanted to hear if you guys had any anecdotes that you could share from families, community members who you are now serving, but who didn't have the access before, and how their lives have changed, like before and after your guys' solution came along.
I know we service a lot of seniors as well, and a lot of them, they love consistency. They will be loyal to the consistency of the business and or enterprise. And so with us, if we're delivering on Thursday at X o'clock, they literally will text me and be like, "Oh, hey, I'm outside waiting," or you didn't come at XYZ time, or, changing delivery drivers. But I will get text messages of recipes like, "Hey," and I have pictures too. I made such and such this week, or I did stuffed peppers and all these different things that they understood, but they wouldn't have been at Eastern Market because it's too many people. One, both health and physical mobility concerns, and then two, just driving there in general. So getting to be in people's faces, or meeting them where they are, as far as like physicality and geographical location, has been really beneficial to facilitate their ability to eat their meals and stuff like that, because there's a lot of seniors who don't want to live alone, so they live in apartments, and they enjoy community living. So I feel as though we provide some type of community living, especially once we start educating them more about the farmers that we work with. I really, really think that they'll value more who they're getting their food from. And then with the Fresh Prescription Program, there's majority Black and people of color, Black and Indigenous people of color who we service through the Fresh Prescription Program. Now that's through Henry Ford and hospital systems, health systems. So they're getting their food in a different way, and it's being prescribed fresh prescription. They're getting a prescription for fruits and vegetables for ailments such as diabetes, heart disease, and all those other different things that doctors are valuing or learning to value as a means to cure or facilitate health. And so there have been people waiting at the door. As soon as you tell them, like, "Hey, we coming," they say, "Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I look so forward to, getting this produce." And there are some people who value local produce more than the non-local produce that we see in traditional grocery stores, like the bananas and things like that. But once they're educated about why local produce is important, and the nutrients that we can get from that, they transition into so more people value the non-local more than the local produce, and they don't realize, like, stuff might have holes in it, or it might have bruises and things like that. But once they get educated about why that is the way that it is and where it came from, then there's a different outlook on it. So
Being in the Jefferson Chalmers neighborhood and community, I see just a different level of like activation out of the neighbors. Being that it's an equity crowdfunded store and people can become investors and things like that, their creative juices are flowing on how they can contribute to that store being a success. So when Dad say, like, working with people that look like her, well, that store has to be a representation of the neighborhood that it's serving. And I'm seeing so many ideas come across the table, like, okay, I can grow this and bring that to the store. I can cook this and have that in the store. I can do this for the store. That has always been a good eyeball test, because I've been in neighborhoods where the neighbors didn't even care. And that, the model just didn't work there. But being in the Jefferson Chalmers neighborhood, you're seeing so much activation within that block alone. Everybody want to be a part of that store, not only as just a consumer, they want to be a producer as well. And if you just imagine just looking down the line and saying, hey, we got a whole street of producers that's doing something in that store, but doing something beyond that, that's change. You know what I mean? You can't beat that. So outside of what Daz has spoken to, because we see the customer feedback doing the deliverables every week and delivering these boxes. With the standalone option, you see just a different level of excitement, but just engagement. That store, that was a liquor store before we took it over and started building our neighborhood grocery, and people didn't want to touch it outside the folks that wanted liquor. Now you see healthy food coming in, but you also just see opportunity. If you didn't even see the healthy food, you see opportunity. So people are building opportunity around that opportunity. You know what I'm saying? I got a kitchen, I can do this. I got trucks, I can move this or do that. So the spirit of entrepreneurship has become more visible to me outside of myself because of the store being built.
I appreciate you guys sharing the stories of how people have, started to see changes in their own lives because of what you guys are doing and are seeing more opportunities. And that's so awesome to hear because, and I'm sure it feels really fulfilling to see that, even like small steps of progress, like just taking it one day at a time and seeing the impact you're making on even one person at a time. So that's really huge.
You guys spoke a bit about just like big box retailers and kind of their role within this ecosystem that you guys are in. And I know it's new for me, and some of our listeners also may be new to this, but what role do you think those big box retailers are playing, the Walmarts, the Whole Foods, the Myers, in the problem? Raphael mentioned a bit earlier, like the prepared foods, the lack of culture and community, the lack of investment, in this. But yeah, what problem? How do you think they're actually a part of this problem within the ecosystem, and how has that directly impacted you all's mission?
I believe that big box stores are perceived to be bigger, better, and it has detached people from culture and detached people from the mom and pop stores. The fact that there is an owner of this store is not just a family of people who made a decision to legacy and all these different things. When it comes to smaller businesses, there may actually just be this one person that does everything, although it may not be as beneficial at the moment in time, but they're still in the process of transitioning to something bigger and better. So the value of one, the value of the products, two, the value in the products, in addition to that culture that comes along with that product, why it was made, how it was made, where the products come from, or the ingredients come from, and the people alongside of that. So bigger and better, convenient, quick, fast, and easy, because you are what you eat. If people are getting a lot of quick, fast, and easy food, and what kind of, I don't mean to go that way, but at the same time, what kind of relationships and partnerships are you attracting in your life as well? And what kind of energy do you have? You just have some quick, fast, and easy energy that dissipates very quickly, or do you have some long-term, long-lasting, delayed gratifying energy that can propel you forward towards your legacy and things like that?
You look at a big box corporation like Kroger or Amazon with Whole Foods, they are expecting to sell food to a customer at this pricing point that's here, that's not equitable for the person that's producing it, that's putting this much work into it. So if I want to get in this big box establishment and I'm gonna do, $100,000 worth of work, but only get paid $30,000 for it. It's creating an imbalance between the people that's doing essential work in the way that corporations are presenting that work, because they want to sell things. They have the bargaining power, to say, hey, we only gonna buy your product if you're gonna sell it to us basically for free. So it creates this huge imbalance between people that are actually producing food, and that's not even, because these big box corporations are not producing food, for the most part. They're buying food from the farmers like Daz and I and others that have infrastructure to produce thousands, tens of thousands of pounds of anything, but doing it at a real deep discount. Because food overall is in America about dollars and cents. And it's not about actually feeding people what they need so that they can sustain and grow and whatever. It's about how much money I can make off of it and how fast can I make it. But yeah, we got people going hungry left and right. There should be nobody struggling to make a meal, find a meal, but that's all you see in America. So the model itself that corporations present, it creates all types of imbalances. People feel like they have to work more to make more. They end up not making enough, and they still got to take care of a family, feed themselves, stay sociable, because that's important as well. And none of that is possible with the big box model. So things have to change, and having a more local approach or a local alternative to the big boxes gives that type of, not even competition, but it just gives another option for people. And it kind of restores peace on a lot of levels, personally and professionally.
To your point, Raphael, it's not even a competition. It's just different. It's two different type of experiences, that the community is getting, and you guys have really proven the model of the community wants to be invested, as opposed to somebody just coming in and telling them what they need and want. Raphael, you mentioned something I thought was really cool too. You talked about how McDonald's is not even in the food business. Like, they're a distributor, right? They're just pushing food through, unhealthy food. And then when you look at where they place their actual businesses at, it's almost like, in my mind, it's like to keep those communities in those unhealthy spaces, right? Like on 8 Mile, a few miles from John R., a tropical smoothie was just built over there. Right across the street, it's been a Popeyes there, a Burger King as well. And I was like, yo, that is so dope. Okay, wow, we can finally get like a tropical smoothie. We're deserving of that, right? In 2022. So can you talk more about why McDonald's is actually a real estate, I think you said a real estate company, and versus us thinking they're a fast food company? I thought that was really neat.
Yeah, so fast food in essence, especially with their proximity to inner cities, has all been strategic and adversely effective to, inner city communities, predominantly Black and brown or colored communities. So the Lyndon Johnson administration had been looking at ways to stimulate the economies in places like Detroit, but specifically they were looking at Watts, California. They were looking at a Black community that had been decimated by a riot or however they wanted to, pin it, but they were looking at how can we stimulate this economy. And they looked at different industries that them as the federal government could say, we're going to provide all the resources necessary to make sure that these industries enter these communities and that the people are a part of it, as far as owners, like franchise owners, et cetera, so that we can stimulate this economy, build jobs and build ownership, et cetera. Different industries came up, auto industry, telecommunications, media, et cetera, all came up as an option, but fast food was chosen. So when you see like Kentucky Fried Chickens becoming you just see them everywhere, that was all by intention and strategy. When you see McDonald's and things like that, they were incentivized to come into these communities. So when you're looking at the different advantages that these businesses present, they're not coming from the standpoint of, okay, we're going to come in and bring food, good experience, blah, blah, blah. like we got tax advantages to come. We got, certainly so many different benefits to be in the hood. We gonna come in the hood. That also created a real challenge for people that were really food driven, like grocery stores and healthy food outlets, because no money is being lent to the grocery store or whatever. It's all being lent to the fast food franchise. I believe in a book that I was reading, for every $1 that was given to a grocery store in lending from SBA, $25 was given to a fast food franchise. So there were so many advantages that came into these businesses entering the community, that they entered at a rapid rate. So they outnumbered grocery stores almost 30-1, because financially it benefited them where it never benefited the grocery store. The intention was that Black, ownership would increase, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, now we see a health consequence, because there were many Black franchise owners and many, Black pretty much ran and operated fast food franchises, but now the home cooked meal has been decimated. So if you work at KFC, I'm gonna take KFC home every day to my kids, and they eating that every day. So now there's a health consequence, there's a health crisis, and then when these stores are victim of high theft and blah blah blah, they get priced out when you are a Black owner and you can't afford the insurance and can't afford the franchise fees, things like that. So then these stores are now sold to people that aren't even from the community anymore. And it just creates a whole world of dysfunction. So that's the root of it. But then outside of that, the health thing, what we look to address is provide healthier food. These stores never had the profit motive of being a health food store, or a food store, because of whatever government advantages they could take advantage of. And I honestly can't say that that's something that, we should frown upon. In the capitalistic world, is like, you just have to find capitalists that are working to, hedge that and go against that, like myself. So I'm not looking at the tax advantages to say, well, let me get as much as I can for myself. I'm looking at the tax advantages, how I can be equitable with it. So that's the thing. That's a real thing. There's books written about it, articles, etc. Supersizing America is probably the best book that I would refer to reading about how fast food became a thing in Black communities, but just in America. Because outside in suburbs, it's the same way as well. They have more healthier food outlets, but you definitely just see fast food everywhere.
Okay.
I also did want to mention too that it's based off of all the incentives and everything of these large companies. The challenge that we also face as small businesses, because they provide jobs as well. They're putting X amount of jobs back into the city. So the municipal impact that they have as well hits harder than the actual environmental or the culture. Well, it all is inclusive. It's deeply rooted because it goes back to the actual entities that run the city and that facilitate the jobs and the whatever else goes into the livelihood of the people who actually live in those cities.
I think in 3 different ways you guys kind of iterated a similar point, which is that there's a big movement that is required to change the mindsets that add to the problem that you guys are trying to solve, and that's going to take time, right? But I think there's lots of different solutions working towards helping change people's mindsets behind why we do the things we do and why we're looking for instant gratification all the time. I started my company Trio to try and build a future with zero band-aid solutions for chronic conditions. And so obviously a huge problem is the fact that, instant gratification, we're looking at chronic disease, and instead of looking at the root of the problem, we're looking at the symptoms and then attacking them with medication, when really we should be looking at the root first, right? And so that stems from so many things. And so we're looking at our members' social determinants of health. So that obviously includes access to food, what kind of food that is, community support, your cultural support and more, to actually help people change the way that they think about their health and to change the way that the world approaches fighting disease. And you guys are obviously building a movement because you're attempting to change the way you can influence communities by making sure that there is a cultural element combined with healthy food, combined with literacy, and all of that to really change the way that communities think about health as a whole and how people have access to the resources they need. So I'm wondering if you guys have any specific projects or community outreach that you've done be particularly effective in engaging individuals to to take advantage of like the resources that you guys have been offering them.
I can speak of one project that I'm knee deep in now, Taste of Diaspora. Taste of Diaspora is a food agency that I started along with two of my friends who are also food influencers in the city, both chefs, both come from just a world of experience. So one of my partners is the manager of Whole Foods. My other partner has worked in the administrative capacities of several food organizations. She also is pretty much an expert in food safety, things of that nature. So we use Taste of Diaspora as a way to celebrate Black history and Black contributions to American cuisine, from food, makers, inventors, etc. But in that excitement and in that engagement and entertainment, we provide mutual aid. So we use the entertainment, the celebratory elements and things like that, the engagement with people we do shoebox lunches, which is a replication of the shoebox lunch from Jim Crow. Back when African Americans couldn't travel throughout the country freely, they would many times they would pack lunches when they were traveling from the South to the North or back down to the South. To keep from stopping, they would pack food. So they didn't have to stop to a gas station and risk one being rejected or being killed. They would pack food and lunches. So we were replicating that and using that as a form of media, as a form of education, but as a form of engagement. Once we bring people in from the customer side, many of those consumers are, heads of different organizations that may be able to help us out. And then we disperse that help out to other organizations or other partners that we have. We partner with other food makers, whether it's urban gardeners, farmers, other chefs, other restaurants, etc., in these boxes or food presentations that we do. But it's all just a big ball, a circle of collaboration, but just distribution of information, resources, plugs, etc. That's one way off the top of my head that I've been engaged in outside of with Deeply Rooted. We use just the culture to bring people into one place. And then that culture accompanies different resources, different expertises, etc. And then we help disperse them in a form of mutual aid to everybody in the food system, because we all need the help. And it's very unselfish to just pass it out. It's very selfish to just hold it in and say, I'm gonna help myself only and whatever. But no, we use that opportunity to make sure that everybody that we know don't work with within the food system, and share common goals and paths that we do, make sure that they are in the know and also that they are in good positioning to take advantage of these things. And that's one thing off the top amongst others. Obviously neighborhood groceries are open yet, but that would be another outlet of, a way of that we can engage. That brick and mortar space is also a mixed use space. So outside of the store, there's a unit above that used to be an apartment, and then you have retail behind it. All of that is supposed to spark forms of mutual aid, forms of expression, culture, etc., so that we can engage with people outside of just food. Political engagement, educational engagement, culture engagement, all of that can happen, but the medium is always starting with food and then kind of going from there. And those are two examples I can think of, but those are very effective ways, and it's been working, and it can continue to evolve. but given where Detroit is right now, has been extremely effective. So I, thought of those above anything else.
That's a good transition into what Deeply Rooted does as far as the Sunday dinners. We have weekly Sunday dinners that engage the communities in a traditional way that some families come together for Sunday and for Sunday meals. So when it comes to literally, I've learned that some grandmothers literally cook on Sundays every single week just to bring their family together. So we do that on a community platform in the garden with food harvested from the garden. Chefs that have a visceral connection to the land. We work with Sisters on the Roll, Chef B, or Harriet Brown. She grew up on a farm, and it's more so of the love that she pours into the food that she can articulate and demonstrate to people more than anything. And then we work with Alexandria of Mad Creates, and the proficiency of love it on yourself, as she says, making it easier to love on yourself, and only using a few ingredients to make this profound meal. The combination of the two just facilitates some type of internal journey, I would say, both spiritual, mental, and physical, that helps heal the community. There's a lot of people who are doing a lot of individual work, self-work, shadow work, but when we start doing the communal work together in community spaces, brown, black, purple people, all of us can come together and have a mutual understanding of like, hey, this is what we're doing, this is what we want to do, and this is how you can help. Because those are all donation-based dinners as well. And something that we're going to be doing this year is doing them at the neighborhood grocery. So with just engaging the east side of Detroit and those who valued us being at the garden, we can combine the visceral. I keep using the word visceral, but it just means anatomically, it means close to the heart. So that's why I really keep using those words. So yeah, just combining what the land means to the people and putting that on a plate and exemplifying that in community healing is really important. I really think that presence has been the most beneficial way that we can engage the community at this moment.
One of the biggest questions that we get all the time is like, okay, yes, I have this idea, but I have no clue how to fund this. So can you all share how you fund your missions and how effective that's been thus far in your journey?
I will start. Equity crowdfunding. So a little background in crowdfunding, and I'm pretty sure most of the viewers have seen crowdfunding in some sort, whether it's GoFundMe, someone needs money for a surgery, or raising money for a specific cause, whatever. You can do a GoFundMe, Kickstarter, things like that. That became a thing for small businesses in 2012 with the Jobs Act that President Barack Obama passed. Traditionally, enterprises could only raise money in a certain manner from a certain type of investor. Well, that changed with President Obama passing the Jobs Act, that basically said that small businesses or private-owned enterprises, more specifically, could do a capital raise similar to what you would see on Wall Street. So taking small amounts of money from people all across a specific area or discipline, you can capitalize a business. I personally see that as the future for specifically community development projects like Deeply Rooted and neighborhood groceries all across the country. We can raise money with having a following, having a cause that aligns with other folks, being really tapped in with a community of people that has $20, $50, and you can take that times that population of people, you are in real good position to fund and capitalize on a project. I am one of the lucky ones in the community and in this realm of crowdfunding where just under 80%, it was over, but with the sliding scale of cost that's been happening with inflation, just under 80% of my project has been funded via crowdfunding from non-accredited investors, which are basically people that are not wealthy, contributing $10, $50, $100 to a campaign that I am spearheading to say, hey, I want to open a grocery store in the community, and you can become an investor, which means you are entitled to shares of profit, project discounts, etc. You can come up with an array of ways to entice this investor to become a part of your enterprise or business on the investment side. That has helped me tremendously. One is a great form of marketing. So even when I was crowdfunding and wasn't raising a lot of money, I got an opportunity to build relationships with people who have money. Then when the money started rolling in, it just made me more capital ready, but also it positioned me to maybe go get a loan, to get a grant, or just open up a world of relationships that I didn't have before. So that crowdfunding has really been my lifeblood. I live by it and will absolutely in this lifetime die by it, because it is the future and it will be the standard of how businesses can become a capitalized enterprise to not only start but sustain. Disrupting this current system of like red tape when you go to traditional financial enterprises. I have the more in the world, in my opinion, but I've been told no one too many times because of things that are, it doesn't really make sense. And also, like, I didn't come from a wealthy family. I didn't inherit wealth or privilege or influence. So going in those places and sitting at those tables have never been to my advantage. But now I don't need that advantage no more, because I can raise money with regular people to regular people, and it makes it a happier process. And it's a much easier one for me when I'm connecting with the people that I work with and for every day. It makes it all worthwhile and it makes it easier. Going through the loan process is so strenuous, and then there's so many buts. So I was just this close to getting this loan, but you was gonna get this grant, but you're gonna get this, and I don't have that anymore. For the most part. Now, we still have a funding gap. We still need money to run the business. We still need money to grow and expand. And those challenges will come up, but I feel confident and I feel empowered that I have this tool versus going the traditional route. The traditional route is always there as well, loans, investments, and of a more accredited size, grants, etc. But that's what I've been living off of as far as like the way to capitalize a business. Like that's just, I live by it, make sure that you're updating investors on the progress of this project, good, bad, or indifferent, showing transparency, but just the passion that you put into these projects. People see it, and $50 don't hurt, you know what I mean? So here goes my $50. It's not breaking my pocket, but times that by 10,000 people, 20,000 people, whatever. What can't you not build, and what community can't be built off of that? I mean, it's an old method that the Asian communities have been using in America for the longest time. Latinx communities have been using it. African communities that have come from Africa over to America, they all money pool, and that's all it is a form of money pooling. You cannot go wrong when your community is invested in itself, building from the ground up, real grassroots. Like, can't beat it. Community that can build together can't be stopped. And I live by that, and I think that's the future, and that's really what I want to put in the community, is just that vehicle of capital fundraising, as well as ways for us to come sit down and really figure out, these are problems in our community, this is how we gonna fix it. Okay, how much money do it take? Let's raise it ourselves. And that's really what I've been looking to instill outside of the grocery store. Again, it starts with food, but it doesn't end there. So I just want to put that in the world, particularly in the communities that we're from, because it'll be a great asset to all of us.
Yeah, and we've had similar experiences with both crowdfunding, neighborhood funding, on a smaller scale. And so we've participated in something called IOB. We participated in Detroit Soup many times. All of these are community grassroots organizations that facilitate neighbors donating and investing in your vision, your mission, and what you seek to accomplish. So we've in addition to that, we've gotten some non-traditional grants, both through social enterprise competitions and through large investors. We are involved with the likes of like the USDA now, so that we're getting involved with more more structured entities, I guess. But we have to make sure that we're operating in integrity and making sure that it aligns with our mission. So we have a lot of options, but if we don't have any grant funding and any external funding options, our internal, sales streams and revenue streams are something that we strategically position so that we can fund whatever else we would like to do throughout the season. So we offer like CSA subscriptions, which is a community supported agriculture produce box subscription. And then we also offer, starting this year, individual produce items like fish is what we're going to introduce in addition to the produce itself that's grown at our farm. So individual items, herbs, spinach, salad mixes, tomatoes, all those different things. People can create their own, grocery bag like they were to shop at a traditional box store. So we definitely dabble into the traditional, more fundraising aspects. But when you don't have, or when one doesn't have the financial literacy to manage those funds, $10,000 don't mean nothing at all. We've had several hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it seems as though it goes super fast because it's like, oh well, we could have invested in this, or we could have did this, but we did what we did the best that we could with what we had at the time. And I appreciate all of the people who've invested in us and still see the vision for us to proceed forward. So we're still learning on what opportunities of fundraising and revenue generating work best for us, and working on those internal streams right now.
Yeah, and I want to jump in 1 second. What is the last point on that? Because that is very important. We in our community, we've been taught so often that, all you need is the money. All you need is the money, and then things will change, not just professionally, but personally. Personally, it don't work, and it definitely don't work business-wise, because you have $1 million, but you got a problem, and you don't have a solution or know how to solve it. Now you got $1 million problem. So you have to have that knowledge and things like that. And I've always I valued the way that the city has started to develop in the ways that different technical assistances have been provided. I was lucky to take advantage of several of those technical assistances. I believe that a lot of them in the city personally kind of sold themselves as something different. And it gave us the extra incentive to participate because we thought we were going to get paid. Like, if you do this work, you're going to get some money on the end of it. When you should just say, here, do this work and learn something and, kind of take it to your next path. A lot of us wanted to get some type of grant or some type of pay for that time, when in reality, it was really school for us. So having those things in place along with money makes things better. And that's the beauty of community. Because when you're doing it by yourself, it's very hard. You know what I mean? It's very hard, and you are responsible for retaining all of this information. Whereas if you had a team or a community, it's much better and it's easier. You know what I mean? So you can really structure, sustain, and grow 1,000,000 times quicker because you have all of those other functions in place along with the money. So like I've always, I said it in my last comment about like, the crowdfunding will not only bring money, but it'll bring people together to say, hey, what are our real problems? and we need to come up with some solutions. So that's the first question you need to be asking. What are the issues? And what are we going to do to solve them? Okay, now how much is it? And let's start raising the money to get it done, which is just safe. If nothing else is safe. And oftentimes we kind of take the role in reverse and say, let's raise a bunch of money and you don't know what to do with it. And it's happened to me. It's happened to a lot of us. So, Dad's really hit a very, very, very pivotal point with something that I know me and her both individually and collectively have done. Like, we got money and what the hell to do with it. It's like, it's here, but now how do we make that investment a strategic one versus something that, wasted our time? I could speak to buying market research. When I raised $50,000 and the market report was 20, and I still got to open a store. So now I'm 30 light, and I needed that other 20 to make something happen on the equipment side or whatever. Now I don't have it no more because I had to buy one document, and you just have to find ways to get more inventive and things like that. So just want to make that point alongside with what she said, because that's very important. Very important.
These are all great points, and I think everything that you guys have shared about, honestly, I mean everything, but especially structuring your business, funding, and making sure that you're working with your community to lift your venture and just people around you up, and constantly being conscious of all of those things, I think are some of the most valuable things that people are going to take away from this. And we really just want to thank you guys for coming on and sharing your stories. Like, you guys have no idea. Every time we record an episode, I think we both just leave so energized and inspired by the amazing work that everyone we have on is doing. Just individually and together, like, you guys are an awesome team and you guys are doing such awesome work. And we're super excited to share that with our listeners and just make sure that you guys are, I don't know, getting any extra attention that we can give you. We're still a growing podcast, but anything that we can do to help, please make sure to let us know. And with that, like, as our final thing, we would love for you guys to just share what your hope is for the next generation of social entrepreneurs, and how you hope what you guys are doing with Urban Plug, Neighborhood Grocery, Deeply Rooted, what you hope you can do to just help them be more successful and just serve as an inspiration for them.
For me, it's more so how can those who have great ideas and great visions connect with something that already exists, instead of just starting something new because they had a big idea. A lot of people, and a lot of elders may have a great idea and may be doing the work, but they're exhausted and they need a spark. They need another fire to ignite theirs. And so partnering with other organizations, or first seeking out organizations that may be doing something similar. They won't be doing the exact same thing that you want to do, but I really would love to encourage the next generation to collaborate with elders and people who are already doing the work that they want to do, or in some shape or form. So if you don't collaborate with other people, you'll end up being exhausted, and you can get burnt out after a certain period of time. And it may, depending on the field of work you're in, it may happen sooner than later. So when it comes to the holistic healing work, it happens more sooner than later, because we're dealing with people, we're dealing with healing, we're dealing with holistic interactions. So sometimes people take that home with them and take it personal. So not taking things so personal and humbling ourselves and figuring out, hey, such and such, I've been doing this for X amount of years. And now there's this organization that has this amount of land or this amount of resources. I've been looking for that all my, in X amount of time. I might as well just go reach out to them and see if they need any help, or, see if they need anything from me. And then we can figure out, what I can get from that relationship. Because once we approach community healing as a community and disregard ego and things like that, that's when we really can elevate and propel forward as a community and individuals.
we all, again, going to what I was speaking to in the beginning, if you are subscribing to a capitalistic view in any way, shape, or form, you want to make money, and you shouldn't be ashamed of that. It's how you reinvest that money or route that money once it's made that makes a world of difference in your life and the lives of others. So that feathers what Dash is talking about with collaboration, with research, with just reaching out. That is not possible when you're just profit driven, or not as possible when you're profit driven. But when you are change driven, thinking about impact, thinking about infecting the lives of people around you in a positive manner, collaboration comes natural. The exchange of information from one person to the next becomes natural. The transfer of game and knowledge and resources or whatever, it just becomes a natural organic thing when you're thinking about impact. When everybody is impactful, everybody is impacted. When everybody's impacted, this level, everybody reaches it like this. We all go up together. Whereas if I'm the only one doing it, I'm in control of how you do it. And there's no shared space in that, and there's no shared foundation in that in social entrepreneurship. It's about people, it's about the planet, and profit is there too. But you have to think about how you are affecting everybody around you, whether it's positive or negative. We get it wrong often because we think we helping out, and many times we are a detriment. We all will fall victim to that. But it's just a conscious effort that I think always puts you in a better position to change, to fix things. I mean, the person I was yesterday, I'm not the same person today. And I'm not talking about yesteryear. I'm talking about from March 23rd, 2022 to March 24th, 2022. I'm not the same person. So approaching everything from an impact standpoint, it aligns all of that, and then it sets your mechanics out properly so that you can be conditioned to move the way that you need to move and just do everything that you need to do in this social realm. Can't speak for everybody else that's driven for profit. We're talking about anybody that's driven for impact. Money is good. Money is cool. Money is great. But change is always better than that. So I think that'll wrap up both for me. And that's how I approach everything. The mechanics don't really change. How to write out a business plan, how to pursue funding, all that stuff is similar. Whether you are a nonprofit, for-profit, low-profit, whatever, it's where the heart is at and where the mind is at. So, just keep that in mind. You're going to always be all right.